Excuse me? But does your friend often do that?
Strange. Be back, Jeremy.
Hey, what was that?
Went forward in time to view alternate futures, to see all the possible outcomes of the coming conflict.
How many did you see?
14,605,000.
How many did I win?
One.
Hey everyone, it is time to talk about the UFC 299 main event between Sean O'Malley and Marlon Chito Vera. We are going to cover a lot of things in this video, including some of the history with this fight, what I see as some of the strengths and weaknesses for each of these guys, what I think the keys to their victory will be, and finally I'm going to wrap it up with my predictions for the fight. As always, you will find all those sections timestamped down in the progress bar of the video. Now, before I get into all that, I do have to ask, if you liked the opening of the video, if you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. It does take a lot of time to put this stuff together, and when you do those types of things, it does motivate me to bring you more in the future, so I would really appreciate it. Now, I know that there are a lot of different opinions when it comes to this fight. First of all, I think Sean O'Malley is a pretty polarizing figure. People either tend to love him or to hate him. And on the other side, you have a guy like Chito Vera, who is mostly liked and well regarded. On top of all that, these guys really don't like each other that much, so I think there's going to be a lot of fun in the build-up to this fight, and I do think it has the potential to be a great main event for the card. If we go back to the beginning with this one, the original fight took place back during the COVID time when everything was being done in the Apex. It's actually really strange to go back and watch that first fight because it's so quiet in the building, and the kind of energy that you're used to seeing during a Sean O'Malley fight is not there at all. The fight itself wasn't long, and I remember when I was watching it live, I thought that Sean O'Malley was dominating the round until it ended. But when I went back recently to actually watch it again and pay more attention, I think it was much more even than my original recollection, and it was pretty much just a back and forth leg kick battle, with Sean O'Malley perhaps getting a few more on Chito than Chito did on him. However, Chito did win that battle because he landed one leg kick that completely ruined the right leg of Sean O'Malley. O'Malley did a good job of hiding it for a little bit, but eventually his legs started to buckle. And not long after that, Sean fell down, Chito jumped on top, hit him with some hard elbows, and finished the fight in the first round. So in the aftermath of all this, some of the bad blood developed because Sean O'Malley didn't give Chito Vera the credit for the win because he attributed it to the injury rather than Chito finishing him. He even went so far as to say it pretty much doesn't count and that he's still undefeated. So as you might imagine, that has pissed Chito Vera off, and I think he's excited to get out there and show that it wasn't a fluke. But while Chito Vera has gone on to have a mixed bag of wins and losses, Sean O'Malley has reached superstar status and won the championship of the division. And that career divergence makes this fight even that much more interesting. So with all that said, let's break down this upcoming matchup. Starting with Chito Vera, I want to give you what I believe are his strengths and weaknesses as a fighter. I think his biggest strength overall is that Chito Vera is a tough and durable guy. He's not the type of guy that's likely to get finished, so he has the ability to take some damage and wait until later in a fight to gain momentum and win. And I think when you look at the layout of this fight, that particular trait of his is going to be very important. Now beyond that, I think Chito Vera is generally just a good fighter. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't really think he's great anywhere. Yes, he has good boxing, he has some good leg kicks, he maintains a pretty tight defensive guard, but overall I don't see any of it as exceptional. And while he doesn't really have any exceptional weaknesses either, he does have a few that I think are going to make it hard for him to beat O'Malley in this rematch. The first is that Chito Vera's stand-up game is just mostly basic. You've got general boxing mixed with leg kicks. And unfortunately for Chito, I think Sean O'Malley just does that better. He's taller with a longer reach for one, and two, he knows exactly what Chito Vera's going to do. Sean O'Malley doesn't have to worry about any sort of takedowns, and after beating somebody like Aljo, he wouldn't worry about that anyway if that was part of Chito's game. The other weakness I think Chito has is that he's generally a really slow starter. It often takes him a couple of rounds to really start to build momentum, and while that could work out if Sean does get tired later in the fight, I just don't think Sean's going to give him that opportunity. So with all of that said, I think the chances for Chito Vera to win this fight are pretty small. But the great news for him is that he's already accomplished the one way I do think he could win this fight, and that is to relentlessly target and attack Sean O'Malley's legs. If there's one glaring weakness for Sean O'Malley that I picked up on, having gone back and watched many of his fights now, It's that his legs are effectively his Achilles heel. Sean O'Malley has had 2 different fight experiences that I'm aware of where his leg was damaged and it pretty much fully put him out of commission. The first was all the way back at UFC 222 when he fought Andrei Sukamtoth. Sean had pretty much dominated the whole fight, and it looked like he threw a kick where he injured his foot in the 3rd round. There was no obvious moment where you knew it happened. You could only really tell by the way he was acting afterward. And late in the 3rd round, Sean could no longer defend the takedown attempt, and he spent the last minute or so underneath Sukamtoth, so when the fight ended, Sean was not even able to get up and was actually on the ground in agony over his foot. It was so significant that they actually announced his win with him on his back, and Joe Rogan came into the cage to interview him and had to kneel down to do the interview. And I share all that because there have now been 2 significant occasions where when Sean's legs were damaged, he really wasn't able to fight through it effectively. The only reason he won the Sukamtoth fight is because he had already made so much progress by the time the injury happened. In addition to all that, when you look at Sean's legs, they don't have a lot of padding from fat or muscle to protect him when he throws his kicks or receives them back. And I think that just makes him more susceptible to those types of injuries. So now that I've shared what I think is Chito's best chance at winning this fight, I do want to share some additional keys to victory for him. We can be pretty sure that Sean's game plan in this fight is going to be to deploy good movement and to stay out of range of any of Chito's attacks. He's going to try to bait Chito into overextending like he did Aljo, and to take advantage of that by sniping him with his right hand. And Chito will have to extend himself to get to Sean because I think he's going to use a lot more movement. So it will be important for him that when he does that he doesn't overextend and leave himself unguarded. Sean has a pretty good chin, and I think he's going to make it difficult for Chito to touch it. So like I've already emphasized, I think Chito's best effort would be to go low and attack both the body and especially the legs. We've never seen Sean O'Malley go 5 rounds, especially when he's taking damage. And it is pretty difficult to imagine that if Chito is able to get to his legs and inflict damage over all of those rounds, that Sean will be able to take it. So with all of that said for Chito, now let's turn our attention to Sean O'Malley and cover some of his strengths and weaknesses and his keys to victory. Whether you like him or not, Sean O'Malley has definitely improved his game. He has a lot of height and reach for the division, and while on one hand that definitely gives him the advantage that those types of traits provide, it does force him to keep a very skinny frame without a lot of muscle or fat to protect him. So in a sense, it's fair to say that's somewhat of a double-edged sword for him. However, despite being as skinny as he is, he's able to generate a lot of power with his right hand, which is his absolute best weapon. Sean has also shown that he's in good shape and he has solid cardio, although we do need to point out again that we've never seen him go 5 rounds, so that does remain a question mark. Another significant strength that Sean has is his movement, and I believe that this has improved dramatically. Even Aljo had to admit after their fight that his movement was a lot better than he expected, and it made it difficult for him to execute his game plan. One of the key things about this upcoming fight that was different from the last fight is the fact that they are going to be fighting in a bigger cage. In the Apex cage, fighters aren't able to implement their movement game plans as much because of the size. But with the much bigger cage, Sean's going to have a lot more flexibility and freedom in how he chooses to move around. In terms of weaknesses, I've obviously already covered one of the biggest that I've seen, in that Sean's legs are susceptible to damage. And obviously all fighters' legs are susceptible to damage, but in Sean's case, he has not shown the ability to really fight through that when it happens. It crumbled him in the Chito Vera fight, and it pretty much did the same thing in the Sukamtoth fight. So now that we've covered all the strengths and weaknesses for Sean, let's go through his keys to victory. First and foremost, I think he needs to avoid the same sort of game plan he used in the last fight with Chito, which was basically to stand in front of him and trade leg kicks. That is never going to work in his favor, especially over 5 rounds. Instead, Sean should take advantage of his movement like he did against Aljo and draw Chito in where he can consistently land shots on him. I think Sean should only focus on throwing kicks that are relatively safe to land rather than reckless kicks that could hit an elbow or be checked and damage his leg. A great example of that is that front push kick that he does that takes advantage of his long legs. When it comes to winning the fight, while I think Sean should always obviously look for that big right hand opportunity, I doubt that somebody like Chito is going to present it very often. So if that opportunity shows up, that's great, but if it doesn't, I think the plan should be to try to win this fight dominantly in a 50-45 or even better fashion. Chito is very tough and virtually nobody's been able to finish him, so I don't think it's very smart for Sean to think he's going to be the exception, even though he certainly could be. If he is able to beat Chito up over 5 rounds, bust up his face and make him look silly, I think he will go a long way towards erasing the first fight in people's memories and achieve everything he needs to achieve with this rivalry. So now that we've gone through everything for both of them, let me give you my predictions for this fight. I think the most likely outcome for this is a Sean O'Malley decision. If he implements a smart game plan, I think he will be able to cruise to that victory pretty easily. Now, if we go beyond an O'Malley decision, I think any other outcome is a lot less likely. In fact, I'd probably only assign a 20 to 25% chance that O'Malley finishes Chito because he's so defensively sound. And if he does manage to get the finish, I think he'll obviously do it with the right hand. If we look at victory probability for Chito, I'd probably put that around 30 to 35%. And if he does win, I think it will look a lot like it did last time, where he damages Sean's legs or he creates some sort of another injury that he's able to take advantage of and go in and finish the fight. But I do have to think that Sean understands this and will be prepared to not let that happen again. So there you have it, folks. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think I am severely underestimating Chito's chances of winning this fight? Or do you think I'm spot on giving Sean O'Malley the victory by decision most likely? As always, I'll look forward to reading what you think. And once again, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for the future. I always appreciate that. Thank you again for being here today. I hope you have a great one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.